اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذا ما أنزلت سورة نظر بعضهم إلى بعض وإذا ما أنزلت سورة نظر بعضهم إلى بعض هل يراكم من أحد ثم انصرفوا صرف الله قلوبهم بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. فإن تولوا فقل حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. فإن تولوا فقل حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو فإن تولوا فقل حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات اللهم صل على. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Surah At-Tawbah, the last 3 verses. Do they not see that they are tried once or twice in every year, yet they do not turn to Allah, nor do they mind? And whenever a chapter is revealed, they cast glances at one another. Does anyone see you? Then they turn away. Allah has turned away their hearts because they are a people who do not understand. Certainly an apostle has come to you from among yourselves. Grievous to him is your falling into distress, excessively solicitous respecting you. To the believers he is compassionate. But if they turn back, say, Allah is sufficient for me. There is no God but Allah. On him do I rely, and he is the Lord of mighty power. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Just a few reminders that we'll be having English programs this whole week until Thursday night. And then Friday, inshallah, will be the Isha al-Salah Majlis for Marhum Abdi, his parents. And alhamdulillah, we are blessed once again to have Sheikh Salim here with us in our community, that we can once again have him come and speak and impart his knowledge on us. So please help me invite him up with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
القائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected brothers and sisters, we've gathered here on this evening to commemorate a very important occasion in the Islamic calendar. It is the anniversary of the Rihla and the departure of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Let's recite salawat, please. And his grandson, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, it's also the anniversary of his shahada. On this occasion, I want to convey my condolences first and foremost to the living Imam, and then to all of the followers and the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. May Allah reward you for your participation on this weekday night for this occasion. We know that among all the gatherings and all the events that took place for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, one of the most painful for them was the departure of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the extent that whenever tragedies would come upon them, and many of them came upon them, meaning that the Ahlul Bayt faced so many challenges and so many trials and tribulations. Whenever they would find themselves in these challenges, they would find solace by remembering the tragedy of the loss of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they would encourage their followers that when you find yourself in some difficult situation, one of the things you can do is to let yourself mourn for the departure of Rasulullah. And they told us that when we go for ziyarah of Rasulullah, there's a hadith reported from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He says that whoever visits the Prophet, whoever goes for the ziyarah of the Prophet, then the etiquette of doing so is that first of all say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un 3 times. As you're going to see somebody who has left this world, remind yourself also that you're going to be leaving this world, and remind yourself also that you're the property of Allah. Inna lillah, we're the property of Allah. And then he says that ثُمَّ لِيَقُلْ أُصِبْنَا بِكَ يَا حَبِيبَ قُلُوبِنَا. We really were affected by your loss and by your departing us. O the one who is beloved to our hearts. فَمَا أَعْظَمَ الْمُصِيبَةَ بِكَ. What a great and enormous tragedy it was. Why? Because of 2 things. حَيْثُ إِنْقَطَعَ عَنَّا الْوَحْيِ. When the wahy, the divine revelation, was cut off. وَحَيْثُ فَقَدْنَاكَ. And second of all, when we lost you. So both of these were important. The first thing is that no longer were the Muslims receiving the divine revelation. Now, for those of us who never lived at that time of divine revelation, for us it's something maybe we have to think about, and we have to study the Quran to understand what this means. But if we just think that whenever during different times and all the events that were taking place, the Prophet was receiving revelation from God. God would guide the people. He would guide the ummah. He would guide the mu'mineen. He would say, do this. He would say, don't do that. He would give them hope. He would remind them of the stories of the past. He would give them his divine promises. Now, all that came to an end with the departure of the Prophet. That is a huge loss for the Muslims. Second of all is the departure of the Prophet himself. He himself was somebody who was the pinnacle. He was the center point. He was the focus. He was the person who had guided the people to this religion. He was the one who had sacrificed everything, and everyone had grown that type of love for the Prophet. So it was something that was a very great occasion, the departure of the Prophet from this world. And that's what we're here on this night. We hope that our efforts are a way of showing our condolences, like our heartfelt condolences to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam on this occasion. I wanted to take some minutes of our time this evening to examine some of the lessons that we can learn from the Prophet's leadership. The topic of leadership is something that is very important. There's a lot of focus on leadership to the point where you can get entire degrees, even up to the highest level of university study, just in management and leadership. They have entire schools set up for this quality, for learning how to become an effective and a good leader. And throughout history, people have been fascinated by this topic, that how is it that you can, as an individual, that you can be in the position where you can influence other people. And there's been so many studies of different theories and different people of the past, and trying to see what made them be the leaders that they were. Sometimes you have people who look to examples of people who are very significant in history, and they say that, well, what are the main qualities of this person that allowed them to do what they did, and how can we learn from that? What can we apply when it comes to our leadership? And sometimes people, when it comes to this topic of leadership, they say that, well, I'm not really interested in that because I don't want to be a leader. I'm okay just kind of being a follower, and I don't have that personality which makes me want to be a leader. I'm okay kind of being behind the scenes. And so they say that, well, I don't really, it's not something which is of that much interest to me. Sometimes people bring up this objection. They say that, well, we are Muslims who we follow a certain belief system in which we know that leadership is something which is defined and appointed by God. So God is the one who says that, okay, these are the people who are your leader, whether it be the prophets. After the prophets, it's the Aimma alayhim as-salam. So given that we know who our leader is, right now the leader is the Imam of the time, what's the point of even discussing this concept of leadership? I mean, that's something which comes from God. We're not leaders, we're followers. But what I want to say to that, just as an introduction to to talking about the example of the Prophet, what I want to say to that is that, first of all, whether we want to be followers or not, we cannot escape being leaders. That's just the nature of our life and the way that the system that God has created for us. No matter who you are, no matter what situation you're in, whether you are young or whether you're old, you cannot escape the fact that you are a leader. How do we know this? Well, let's look at it logically. First of all, we know that within ourselves we have a soul in which God has created different forces, those of evil and those of good, and there is a battle taking place constantly. This is something we know from the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The scholars of ethics have spoken about this and written about this extensively, that we have the Junudul Iblis and Junudul Rahman. We have the forces of the most beneficent, and then we have the forces of the devil. And these are in battle with one another. And God has given us a power which is meant to be the leader, and it's meant to control these forces and use them in the right way. Right? What is that power? It's the power of the aql, the power of our intellect. So we already are tasked with this, basically we're generals, in this army, and we're told that, okay, whether you like it or not, this is your responsibility to be a leader, to show yourself what is the right decision to make. We know ourselves, that we have these, sort of things that tug us in this way or that way. If we take that responsibility on to say that, okay, well, we need to manage these, we need to control these. For example, somebody who controls their anger, right? They're a manager, right? Like, in those of you who have ever been in the position of management, right? You can think of the people that you're managing, and you can say that, okay, well, in a way, this person, I need to sort of put them in line, right? I need to sort of give them a path and really, show them how they can grow, right? Well, there's one time where you can be doing that to the person externally, and then there's another time where you can be doing it to yourself. And you can say that, well, I myself sometimes get out of line. What can I do? What can I put in place to manage myself? So we are managers, we are leaders of ourselves, number one. Number two is that oftentimes God puts us in a position where we are responsible for helping others, and for guiding them, and for leading them, and for managing them. Sometimes it's in the form of our family members, right? Whether we like it or not, right? We have to be part of a family, and within that family, right, we have a responsibility towards those around us. Kullukum ra', kullukum ra'in, as the famous hadith of the Prophet says, every single one of you is a shepherd, right? You are a caretaker. You have other people that God has made you responsible for, right? The Quran says that believers have responsibility over one another. So whether you have a family or you don't, right, you do have responsibility towards your community. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And you're going to be asked about that responsibility that you have towards others. And even beyond that, we know that when it comes to our communities as a whole, right, everyone has a sense of, we have this need and this, sometimes we have a vacuum of leadership. We don't have people who are stepping up and saying that, you know what, this is where we need to go, this is what we need to do, and I'm willing to actually manage that process. And so it's an area which definitely is in need of exploration, and we can take inspiration from the examples of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. All of us know that we have this one obligation called Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. Right, Amr and Nahi, meaning that you command and you prohibit. Now, what kind of person commands? What kind of person prohibits? It's a leader, right? Like normally you say that, okay, well, it's only a leader who has a right to tell other people what to do, right? Well, Islam says that whether you're formally a leader or not, right, you have a responsibility towards guiding others. If you see somebody going out of line, you can't just be that, okay, well, that's kind of your choice, that's your life, right? I'm cool with whatever you're cool with. Right? That's not what Islam says. Islam says no. You have to take a stance on it. Or you have to look at the conditions. Sometimes you need to speak out. Sometimes you need to indirectly find a path of guidance for that person. But you can't just be totally ambivalent and say that has nothing to do with me. That's their life. So we do have this responsibility, and yes, we know that we are part of a system in which we have a divinely appointed guide. And that's something which is one of the beauties about our faith, right? It's a complete system. But even with the presence of that guide, we know that we have different levels of responsibility, management, and leadership. So what I want to do tonight is to look at a couple of the aspects of the life of the Prophet and some of the examples that we have from his leadership. Now, this is a vast topic. I'm not hoping to finish it tonight or anything like that. But I thought we could just take a couple points of inspiration, and then maybe at a later date we could continue this topic. If you can, inshallah, recite a salawat, please. One of the qualities of the leadership of the Prophet, and these are things which are, maybe you could say that if you take all of these qualities, they're unique to the example of the Prophet and the Islamic leaders. You'll find different aspects, different admirable qualities in many of the leaders of the past. But if you to find all of them in this way, right, you cannot look anywhere except for the divinely appointed household, the Ahlul Kisa, the Ahlul Bayt. So one of the qualities of the Prophet that made him such an effective and an excellent leader was that his first and foremost project was he himself. Now this is very important. In this room here, I see a number of you who are parents. I see a number of you who are older siblings, and you have a desire to help your younger siblings, right? You see that in some areas they're struggling, right? I see parents, I see people who are future family members as well. Future, inshallah, they're going to be parents in the future, right? Some of you don't have children, but you have spouses, right? And you want to be able to help them, right? You know that there's areas of growth that are needed. What is the first and foremost example that the Prophet gives us is that he himself was very, very particular about his connection with God as a means of guiding other people. Despite so many responsibilities, despite so many wars and poverty and people coming to his doorstep and just so many different things, somehow the Prophet managed, right, to regularly devote himself towards the worship of God, to the point that you all know that his feet would blister. طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. Oh Rasulullah, we did not send this Quran down upon you so that you are going to be going through great difficulties on account of it. The Quran is a mercy. The Quran is a blessing. It's a shifa, it's a healing. But it got to the point where the Prophet in the middle of the night would be reciting the Quran, surah after surah, ayah after ayah, reading, to the point where his feet would blister. And Allah had to send a verse in the Quran saying that, okay, even in this, there is, you have to observe some amount of, taking into consideration everything, right? Like it shouldn't be something which now causes you trouble on account of your ibadah. And this type of relationship is something that he himself would tell people. He said that this is a hadith that's reported from Man ahsana fima bainahu wa bain Allah kafahu Allahu ma bainahu wa bain an-nas. Whoever fixes what is between them and God, Allah takes care of what is between them and the people. Right? And this is something which is a very beautiful hadith. It's something which gives people a lot of comfort, right? At times of distress. A lot of times we don't know what to do. We're just like, this person is just, they're a certain way. I don't know what to do at this point, right? Sometimes we need to look internally and say, well, if I were to, examine, do some self-introspection, if I were to fix some of my faults, if I were to improve the quality of my worship and devotion, then perhaps that will be a source of improving other people who are around me. Man ahabba, another hadith, man ahabba an yakuna a'azza an-nas falyattaqillah. If you want to be aziz, if you want to be a leader, right, then you have to have some type of izzah, right? You have to be somebody who's respected, otherwise people aren't going to be able to take you seriously, right? So how is it that you get that respect, right? Now, there's a whole, again, there's entire degrees that you can get just on this one topic. But here, the Prophet says that the key is فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, have taqwa of Allah, and you see that even the same words that you were speaking before, now suddenly people are listening to them. فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, and suddenly now you see that a subtle suggestion will be a source of guidance for others. فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, and you'll see that just by the example that you set, that will be a source of influencing others. So that's one point that is a very important point that makes up the aspect of the leadership of the Prophet. Let's recite salawat, please. The other aspect I want to mention tonight is that has to do with the way that the Prophet would look at his constituents. Constituents are the people that a leader leads, right? Like the followers, right? How would he look at them? If you look at it from the secular perspective, like let's say that you're working off of the latest management theory, right? And you're saying that, okay, I have a project that I want to, I have a project that, I have some sort of plan that I want to accomplish. Like, let's say, I don't know, I want to increase my revenue by this much percent, right? Or I have a certain sort of objectives and, performance indicators. I want to be able to achieve X, Y, Z, right? Now, I look at the people that I have, I look at the resources that I have, I look at the inputs, and then I say that, well, based on these inputs, how can I produce the desired output, right? And then you're like, okay, well, I need to come up with some sort of communication strategy, some sort of evaluation strategy, monitoring strategy, all these different things that they talk about in order to get from point A to point B. One of the things that they typically do not talk about is, well, what's happening to the people in this process? Right? What's actually going on with the people that I'm leading? The Quran says what? The Quran says, for example, in Surah Al-Nasr, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح. Let's say, for example, you're aiming for a victory, right? Whatever that victory is, right? Maybe it's a battle, maybe it's some sort of accomplishment, it's some divine victory that's based on Islamic principles. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. And you see the people, they are entering by waves into the religion. You've accomplished something for the sake of God, now people are coming. Now, what is your responsibility? Is that now you've achieved your objective, you met the KPIs, you met the key performance indicators, now everything is good? فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ. Now, your responsibility is to do tasbih, right, and to do istighfar. Why? Why would God say that, haven't we achieved victory? We got to the end, right? My leadership has been effective. I should be celebrating. I should be jumping up and down. I should be like, yeah, we got to where we got to. But the Quran says that no, at this point, you need to do some introspection, right? Maybe in the process of getting there, right, you might have done some type of, committed a sin. You might have, trampled over somebody's rights. You might have ignored somebody. You might have not fulfilled. You might have ruined somebody's reputation, right? These are things which you have to look at. You have to introspect. You have to see. You have to do istighfar for them. You have to make up for them. So the Prophet, his goal was always something that was tied to the people that he himself was leading. It wasn't something that was separate from them. And how do we know this? We know this from the Quran. What does the Quran say? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. The reason why Allah sent the Prophet, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ, his bi'atha was for what? So that he could be that conduit for these verses to reach their ears. But that's not just it. He's not just a person who's saying, here is what God is saying. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. His role is to do tazkiyah of the people as well. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ. And he's a teacher as well. Now, brothers and sisters, this is something which is very important for anyone who is given that position of leadership, right? Again, whether you're the head of a family, whether you are a sibling, whether you are a teacher, whether you are somebody who's part of a community, which is pretty much everyone here. Your job is also to see what you can do to be concerned about, how the people around you are, right? Don't be indifferent to that. The verses that we recited at the beginning here, before the speech that Brother Mahdi kindly recited so beautifully, it says that what? The Prophet's qualities, right? Allah says that this Prophet that we sent to you, don't take him lightly, right? Understand his worth. What are the qualities? لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. First of all, he's from amongst you. He's a human being like yourself. عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتْتُمْ. Right? He's a leader who, what troubles that you go through are very aziz for him, meaning that there's something which are super important for him. Harisun alaykum. He's somebody who really is very, very concerned and cares a lot for each and every one of you. And by the way, that extends to even beyond his lifetime, right? We know that the Prophet ﷺ is there, and his tawajjuh and his inayah, his sort of attention is there for his followers even past his lifetime in this world. He's very caring, very concerned about that. On the Day of Judgment, we're told that the scene will be something which there's a hadith al-Qudsi where Allah Ta'ala is describing the scene in which the fire of hell will become visible to the people in the hereafter, to all of us. Right? That fire of hell will become visible. And the hadith describes it in detail. And it says that the horror and the terror of that scene will be so much. And this is a hadith al-Qudsi. Allah is speaking to the Prophet. He says that every single human being who is gathered there on the Yawm al-Mahshar will be saying, Nafsi, Nafsi. But you, O Prophet, will be saying, Ummati, Ummati. Right? You'll be saying that my ummah, right? That's his ra'iyah. That's his, the ones that he has been given custody over. Right? Those are the people that he's taking care of. He's concerned about them. He cares for them. Brothers and sisters, there's a lot of practical applications for this. One of them that I want to mention this evening, because we want to come to these speeches, we're trying to, it's not just a formality where, okay, I did my job, I came in, I sat there and I left, right? We're trying to take also some practical points of change and inspiration for our lives. One of the areas where this applies is when it comes to how much care we have for the spiritual future of those that we're tasked for. Sometimes we see that, especially in this area, there's a lot of awareness about the formula we need to follow in order to ensure material success for, let's say, our children. Right? We know that we have to enroll them in these sort of schools and these types of programs and these type of extracurricular activities. But sometimes that same type of fervor sometimes is not seen or at least we don't see that same type of care or concern, maybe that the same type of attention given to the spiritual concerns. What happens to my child when I put them in this environment? What happens to my child when I leave them with that device and they're communicating with those people on that social media platform? Am I aware of these things? Are they a concern for me? Certainly, I know that for some people, who are here and who are listening, it's a great concern, and they are willing to sacrifice so many things to ensure that they're aware of those things and they're taking care of them. But for some others, maybe the approach is one which is different, where it's like, well, that's not my responsibilities. That's up to them to figure out for themselves. I don't have any choice. I'm in this society. I have to really basically succumb, right? And maybe everything will turn out for them. It turned out good for me. It will turn out good for them as well too, right? This is not the Islamic approach towards leadership, brothers and sisters. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّةٍ. You're going to be asked about that. You were given some responsibility. Now you're going to be asked about what did you do with those who you were tasked with? What decisions did you make? What environments did you put them in? Sometimes, we see the changes that take place, right, so swiftly in the path towards God or the path away from God. Sometimes it's a matter of a few months, one summer, right? Somebody who was very committed, very devout, very pure and innocent, and then suddenly after one summer they come back and then it's like, well, what happened to this person, right? What is it that took place, right? And then you realize that no, it's not just one summer, but the seeds were planted much earlier. What were those seeds? It was a seed of that, okay, well, basically I'm free to interact with anyone and do anything and go to any environment, and basically my parents they don't really have that care for my life. They've left me with my device. They've left me with my friend circle, and they're the ones who are now taking care of me. They're my leaders, right? And these are things which then you see the results of that. So one thing that at least myself I'm taking from this, inshallah, other brothers and sisters can take this as well too, is that the Prophet was to the point where sometimes Allah had to tell him that you're so concerned about those that you are tasked with that perhaps لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ, perhaps you might die because of the concern that you have. Your heart is filled with so much care and concern for them. Maybe there's no more room in that container for the care that you have for these. Maybe there's no more room. But of course, Allah would give him more. He would expand. أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ. He would expand it, and he would have that room. Right? So we need to also have that type of concern and care, and also then take those steps that are necessary in order to provide and make those right decisions, so that as leaders we're not asked about those decisions that we made. Please recite salawat. So on this evening we had the opportunity to talk about some of the aspects of the Prophet's leadership. One of them was a quality of really fixing one's relationship with God first and focusing on that as a means of guiding others. One of them was being concerned about the spiritual welfare of those we are leading and managing and guiding, and not just taking a secular approach towards that. There are other aspects that, inshallah, if we get the opportunity in a future occasion, that we will be able to continue and exploring the leadership of our Prophet. Tonight, I wanted to spend now just a few minutes remembering some of the tragedies that took place at the time of the wafat and the wafat of Rasulullah and the shahada of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. Inshallah, I would ask us all to remember the one person in particular on tonight, which is Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. We can't imagine the type of grief that Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam is experiencing in her heart on this night. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasul Allah. Sallallahu alayka ya Habib Allah. Ya Abul Qasim ya Rasul Allah. Ya Imam al-Rahman يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Inshallah, one day we can all be in Medina in the company of the Imam of our time reciting these words. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ishfa' lana inda Allah. In the last days leading up to the departure of Rasulullah, he had fallen ill. His blessed body had become weak. Some days he would stay home, other days he would go to the masjid. He would remind people about the transient nature of this world. You're here for a short time, prepare for the hereafter. One time he went on the minbar weekly. He spoke to the people. He told them that my departure is near. If anybody has any rights over me, please claim them. There's a man who stands up, he says, Ya Rasulullah, there was one time when we were going for battle, there was a stick that you had that struck me on the chest. I wish to take my compensation for that, Ya Rasulullah. How did this messenger of mercy respond? He tells the man, go get the same stick. You can hit me at the same place that I mistakenly hit you. This is the justice of the Prophet. They bring the stick to him. When the man comes near the Prophet draws his shirt up. He wants the man to hit him in that place, but instead that man, he goes down on his knees. He kisses Rasulullah. He says to Rasulullah, by means of this, I want to secure my place with you in Jannah. Rasulullah tells the people that, O people, my life with you was good for you, and my death will also be good for you. They are confused. They tell him, Ya Rasulullah, we understand that when you're with us in our lives, nothing could be better. But how can it be the case that when you leave this world, that your presence will be a source of mercy for us? Rasulullah tells them that when I was with you in this world, I was a source of mercy for you. But when I leave this world, you should know that your deeds will be presented to me. And when I see that you are performing good deeds, I will pray for you. And if I see that you are going the other way, I will seek forgiveness for you. Ya Rasulullah, but after you leave this world, won't your body be subject to the natural decomposition? He tells them that no, our bodies do not get affected that way, and my soul has presence over you. These are the last days and the last hours of Rasulullah. Imagine the scene in the home of the Prophet. He is gathered there, his close ones are around him. One of them is Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. They say that in the last moments the Prophet had asked Amirul Mu'mineen to be right next to him, that he had laid his blessed head in the lap of Amirul Mu'mineen. There's another one who is nearby. Who is it? She is crying very much. It is Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam is grieving so much. Rasulullah tells her, O Fatima, remember what the Quran says. Muhammadur Rasulullah. Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. And if you were to be killed or he dies, will you turn away? I too will leave this world. We know that in hadith we're told that for Fatima alayha salam, that separation was so difficult to bear that Allah sent a special angel to her to give her comfort from the time that Rasulullah left this world till the time that she left this world. At one point, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein come into the room. They go to their grandfather. They want to sit near their grandfather. They want to sit on his blessed chest. Imam Ali alayhi salam, maybe he's thinking that at this time Rasulullah is too weak. It won't be good for these children to be near their grandfather. He begins to separate them from him. The Prophet tells him, "Oh Ali, let them be there. Let them be close to me. I can benefit from their presence. They can benefit from my presence as well. But oh Ali, I'm telling you that after me, the people will do dhulm to these grandsons of mine." We have to say to Rasulullah, "Ya Rasulullah, what did they do to your grandsons after your departure from this world? What did they do to Imam Hassan alayhi salam? So much dhulm to him in his lifetime, so many difficulties he had to face, so many treachery, so much disappointment from those who called themselves his followers. But after he was poisoned and he left this world, they were taking his body. He had told Imam Hussein, 'Oh Hussein, you be the one who is in charge of giving me ghusl. Oh you Hussein, be the one who is in charge of shrouding me, and take me and bury me next to my grandfather. That is my wish. But oh Hussein, if they give you any problems, then don't let a war start on account of burying me next to my grandfather.' When they take his body to bury him next to his grandfather, such a simple request, instead they gather. That one person tells Marwan ibn Hakam, she says, 'Marwan, don't let this happen. I refuse for Hassan to be buried here when Uthman is buried at the back of the graveyard.' So what they do is they take their arrows and they fire the arrows on the body which has now passed. They say that those arrows actually went and they pierced through the funeral shroud, and they went and they pierced the body of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Let us imagine now Imam Hussein, when he is burying the body of his brother Hassan, he must be thinking that what a situation that is, where I am burying my brother who has been poisoned, and after his being martyred, they still attack him with arrows. But let us remember now and tell Imam Hussein, 'Oh Hussein, there will come another time when you will be next to the body of another brother of yours. But this time it will be in Karbala. It will be the body of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. And when you will see him, you will cry out, Al-an inkasara dhahri wa qallat hilati. Now my backbone has been broken. Allah la'anatullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this majlis from us. We ask Him by the sake of Rasulullah to purify our hearts of all diseases and sicknesses, and to make us be the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah Ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. After you left Medina, the rain will not pour, the rain will not pour, the rain will not pour. You left your scent in the streets, upon that door, upon that door. After you left Medina, your sands in these streets. Pour upon that door, pour upon that door. Burn, O Medina, from grief. Cry alongside Ali. From us has left leave. Burn, O Medina, deceased. Without him there's no peace. She too will leave in weeks. Burn, O Medina, from grief. Cry alongside Ali. From us has left leave. Burn, O Medina, deceased. Without him there's no peace. She too will leave in weeks. What did he say to you, Zahra, that you are now happy smiling? What did he say to you, Zahra, that you are now happy smiling? What did he say about Hussein? You're now crying. What did he say to you, Zahra, that you are now happy smiling? What did he say about Hussein? You're now crying. You're now crying. Ya Rasulallah, 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 Ya Rasulallah. Burn, O Medina, from grief. Cry alongside Ali. From us has left leave. Burn, O Medina, deceased. Without him there's no peace. She too will leave in weeks. Ya Rasulallah, 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 Ya Rasulallah. Still in Medina, the arrows pierce Hassan's heart. Still in Medina, the arrows pierce Hassan's heart. From his lovers and visitors, he is still apart. From his lovers and visitors, he is still apart. For he who gave all that he had, is this your answer? For he who gave all that he had, Is this your answer? What evil did you see from my generous master? What evil did you see from my generous master? I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. MashaAllah. I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. While he was still breathing, they turned their backs and left him. While he was still breathing, they turned their backs and left him. How I wish I could have been there, be his protection. How I wish I could have been there, be his protection. This is the grandson of mercy and chief of heaven. This is the grandson of mercy and chief of heaven. His name, if you take in the grave, answers each question. His name, if you take in the grave, answers each question. When will we be, when will we rebuild the shrine of Hassan? When will we rebuild the shrine of Hassan? What kills me is the distance from Hassan. What kills me is the distance from Hassan. I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. I wish to pray in the shrine of Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. But first we'll build your mother's dome, Hassan. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Amir al-Mu'minin Haydar, Amir al-Mu'minin, 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 Amir al-Mu'minin. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. ببخشي دنيا.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك، ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد